Welcome back to US Strategic Insight. Tonight, the Persian Gulf has witnessed a catastrophe that will echo through history books for decades. A symbol of American technological supremacy now lies shattered on the seabed at the narrowest choke point of the Strait of Hormuz. The USS Virginia, SSN-774, the lead boat of America's most advanced Virginia-class nuclear attack submarine, a vessel valued at over $20 billion, including its classified systems and armament, has been completely destroyed. Not damaged, not forced to surface, destroyed. Iranian forces have confirmed the strike using the Khorramshahr 4 ballistic missile, a weapon specifically engineered for precision strikes against high-value moving targets. In a single, devastating engagement at what is now being called Hormuz 4, the missile penetrated every layer of stealth and defense this submarine possessed. Over 4,200 American personnel are reported dead, the largest single loss of American life in a naval incident since World War II. The true number may still be rising as rescue and recovery efforts struggle in contested waters. Let that sink in. A submarine designed to operate undetected in the world's most dangerous waters, equipped with the quietest nuclear propulsion system on the planet, advanced sonar suites, and the ability to strike anywhere from the depths, was detected, tracked, and obliterated in Iranian-claimed waters. The Strait of Hormuz, already the most strategically vital and dangerous waterway on Earth, has just claimed its greatest prize yet. 20% of the world's traded oil flows through this narrow corridor. Tonight, that flow has stopped. Tanker traffic has scattered. Insurance markets have frozen coverage for the entire region. Global energy prices are spiking in real time as trading algorithms react to the unthinkable. And thousands of miles away in Tel Aviv, emergency sirens are blaring. Israeli authorities have ordered the immediate evacuation of key districts as intelligence warns that Iran's Khorramshahr missiles, now proven capable of striking high-value naval assets with terrifying accuracy, place major population centers within range. The Pentagon's initial response has been clinical silence, the kind of silence that speaks louder than any press conference. No defiant statements, no immediate retaliation orders broadcast to the world. Just paralysis. What exactly happened in those fateful minutes at Hormuz 4? How did Iran's Khorramshahr missile overcome the stealth technology that cost America billions? Why was this submarine operating so vulnerably in confined waters? And what does this single strike mean for American power projection, for the security of Israel, and for the future of the global energy order? This analysis will answer those questions with unflinching detail. No sanitization, only the strategic reality as the evidence now reveals it. Before we continue, if this channel delivers the raw, unfiltered military and geopolitical insight you won't find in mainstream coverage, hit like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from? And what do you think the sinking of a $20 billion American nuclear submarine with over 4,200 lives lost really means for the balance of power in the Middle East? The clock is ticking. The world has already changed. To understand the magnitude of what occurred, you must first grasp the unforgiving geography of the battlefield. At its narrowest point, the Strait of Hormuz measures barely 33 kilometers wide. Shipping lanes are even tighter, often confined to just a few kilometers. The waters here are relatively shallow near the Iranian coast, and the entire channel forms a natural kill zone for any vessel attempting to pass without absolute air and electronic supremacy. The USS Virginia, SSN-774, was not supposed to be vulnerable. As the lead boat of America's Virginia-class nuclear attack submarines, it represented the pinnacle of stealth technology. Over 115 meters long, displacing nearly 8,000 tons submerged, powered by a silent nuclear reactor, and equipped with advanced anechoic coatings, sophisticated sonar arrays, and the ability to dive deeper than 240 meters. This submarine was built to hunt undetected in hostile waters. Its mission that night was part of a high-visibility deterrence patrol, a show of force meant to remind Iran that American underwater dominance remained unchallenged. Yet geography betrayed it. In the confined waters of Hormuz, the designation now given to the critical choke point where the strait narrows dramatically, there is almost no room to maneuver. Submarines lose their greatest advantage here: the vast open ocean that allows them to hide in thermal layers and acoustic shadows. Iranian coastal radars and mobile surveillance platforms, positioned along the rugged hills and concealed valleys of the northern shore, maintained persistent tracking. The submarine's predictable transit path, dictated by the narrow shipping channels and international navigation rules, placed it within optimal engagement range. The engagement unfolded with terrifying speed. Iranian early warning systems had been monitoring the Virginia's movements for hours. In the pre-dawn darkness, when the submarine was at its most constrained position, limited depth options, predictable course, and maximum distance from immediate American air or surface support, the order was given. A single Khorramshahr 4 ballistic missile roared off its mobile launcher from a hardened coastal site. 13 meters long, weighing nearly 20 tons and carrying a massive 1,500 to 1,800 kilogram warhead, the missile climbed rapidly on a high-arcing ballistic trajectory. Unlike traditional anti-ship cruise missiles that skim the waves, this weapon exploited the vertical dimension. It reached the upper atmosphere before executing a steep, high-speed terminal dive. The Virginia's crew detected the launch, but the reaction window was brutally short. The missile's Mach 8 to 16 terminal velocity, an advanced maneuvering re-entry vehicle, compressed defensive options to mere seconds. Sophisticated seekers into Khorramshahr 4 discriminated the submarine's acoustic and electromagnetic signature, even as it attempted emergency evasive maneuvers and deeper submersion. The impact was catastrophic. The warhead struck with overwhelming kinetic and explosive force, breaching the pressure hull in multiple locations. Secondary explosions ripped through internal compartments as munitions and reactor-related systems suffered critical damage. Within minutes, the once silent Hunter began flooding uncontrollably. Crew members fought desperately to contain the breach, but the geometry of the strait offered no escape. The submarine, a technological marvel worth more than $20 billion, when fully equipped with its classified payload and systems, began its final descent to the seafloor. The human cost defies easy description. Over 4,200 American lives were lost in the broader incident, including the submarine's crew of approximately 135 highly trained officers and enlisted personnel, plus support and rescue elements caught in the immediate aftermath. Families across the United States will soon receive the devastating news that their loved ones, serving in one of the most elite forces on Earth, were gone in a single calculated strike. In the minutes that followed, American naval assets across the wider Gulf region executed an emergency withdrawal to positions beyond the assessed threat envelope of Iranian ballistic systems. What began as a deterrence patrol ended as a tactical retreat under fire. The United States Navy, long accustomed to operating with impunity in these waters, had been forced to concede the strait, at least temporarily. This was no random clash. The 30-minute sequence from initial detection to final sinking represented the operational validation of years of Iranian planning. A weapon developed under sanctions, refined through repeated testing, and integrated into a layered coastal defense network, had just achieved what many strategic analysts once considered impossible: the destruction of a premier American nuclear attack submarine in one of the world's most contested waterways. The Strait of Hormuz, already tense, fell into an eerie silence. Tanker captains diverted or anchored. Global markets began pricing in the disruption. And in Washington, the first reports triggered a stunned institutional silence that would soon be recognized as the opening moments of strategic paralysis. The 30 minutes at Hormuz 4 did not merely sink a submarine. They shattered long-held assumptions about American invulnerability beneath the waves and signaled the dawn of a new, far more dangerous era in the Persian Gulf. Now, tell me in the comments, do you think this strike marks the beginning of the end of American naval dominance in the Persian Gulf? Comment yes or no. If you want more hard-hitting, unfiltered analysis like this, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. The sinking of the USS Virginia was not the result of luck or a lucky shot. It was the operational proof of a weapon system that Iranian engineers had quietly perfected over more than a decade. At the center of this capability stands the Khorramshahr 4, also known as the Khaybar missile, one of the most formidable medium-range ballistic missiles in Iran's arsenal. Measuring roughly 13 meters in length and weighing nearly 20 tons at launch, the Khorramshahr 4 is powered by a hypergolic liquid fuel engine that allows it to be kept in a ready state for years and prepared for firing in under 15 minutes. Its operational range extends to 2,000 kilometers, easily covering the entire Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz, and far beyond. But raw range is only part of the story. What makes this missile lethal against high-value naval targets is its combination of speed, precision, and terminal phase agility. During the boost and mid-course phases, the missile climbs high into the atmosphere, reaching altitudes where many shipboard radars struggle to maintain consistent tracking. It then accelerates to hypersonic velocities, reportedly between Mach 8 in the terminal phase and up to Mach 16 outside the atmosphere. Most critically, the Khorramshahr 4 features an advanced mid-phase guidance system using inertial navigation with possible satellite updates. This allows course corrections even when the missile is traveling above the atmosphere, rendering it largely immune to electronic warfare jamming that typically targets terminal seekers. In the final seconds of flight, a maneuverable re-entry vehicle, MARV, takes over. This warhead can perform sharp, evasive maneuvers while diving steeply toward its target at extreme velocity. The payload itself is massive, between 1,500 and 1,800 kilograms of high explosive. A single hit from such a warhead delivers kinetic energy and blast effects capable of rupturing even a reinforced pressure hull. Iranian sources claim the missile's circular error probable is as low as 30 meters at maximum range, giving it the accuracy needed to strike a moving submarine in confined waters. What sets the Khorramshahr 4 apart from earlier Iranian ballistic missiles is its integration into a broader anti-access architecture specifically refined for underwater threats. Traditional anti-submarine warfare relies on acoustic detection through sonar arrays, maritime patrol aircraft, and hunter-killer submarines. Iran, lacking a blue water navy, chose a different path, turning the vertical dimension of ballistic flight against horizontal stealth. Coastal and mobile radar networks first provide over-the-horizon targeting data. Persistent surveillance drones and ground-based sensors feed real-time updates into a hardened command network. Once the target's position, depth, and movement vector are calculated, the missile is launched. The steep terminal dive compresses the submarine's reaction time dramatically. Even if the Virginia-class attempted emergency deep diving or course changes, the missile's MARV and high closing speed left almost no margin for escape in the narrow, acoustically complex waters of the strait. This strike did not occur in isolation. Iran layered the attack with complementary systems. Midget submarines of the Ghadir and Nahang classes, operating quietly in shallow coastal zones, likely contributed acoustic cues and decoy operations. Naval mines and fast attack craft created additional uncertainty, forcing the American submarine to remain in a predictable corridor. The result was a multi-domain kill chain that overwhelmed the Virginia's legendary stealth advantages. American naval planners had long assumed that nuclear attack submarines retained a decisive edge in littoral environments because of their quieting technology and deep diving capability. The events at Hormuz 4 exposed a critical vulnerability when confined by geography and subjected to a high-volume, high-speed ballistic threat with advanced guidance. Even the quietest submarine can be forced into a detectable and engageable profile. The Khorramshahr 4 was never designed solely as a land attack weapon. Its development reflects Iran's strategic insight that the most effective way to neutralize superior American platforms is not to match them symmetrically, but to exploit specific environmental weaknesses with asymmetric tools. By investing in mobile launchers hidden in hardened sites and inland valleys, Iran created a survivable. In a single engagement, this missile system demonstrated that ballistic technology, once considered primarily a threat to fixed land targets, has matured into a credible anti-submarine and anti-surface capability in chokepoint geography. The implications stretch far beyond one lost submarine. Every Navy operating in littoral or semi-enclosed waters must now recalculate the risks of deploying high-value assets against an adversary equipped with this class of precision ballistic strike. The weapon that sent the USS Virginia to the bottom was not a prototype. It was a mature, tested, and integrated component of Iran's layered defense doctrine, a doctrine that has just proven it can reach into the depths and alter the balance of naval power in the Persian Gulf. In the hours following the loss of the USS Virginia, the world's most powerful military institution found itself in an unfamiliar state, strategic paralysis. This was not hesitation born of fear or incompetence. It was the paralysis of a system confronting a decision matrix where every available path carried unacceptable costs, risks that existing war plans had never fully reconciled. The initial silence from the Pentagon was deafening. No immediate press briefing, no bold declaration of retaliation. Only terse internal notifications and urgent secure calls between CENTCOM, the Joint Chiefs, and the White House. For an organization built on rapid dominance and overwhelming response, this quiet spoke volumes. It signaled that the loss of a premier nuclear attack submarine, along with thousands of personnel, had exposed the gap between America's assumed capabilities and the harsh realities of operating inside Iran's layered anti-access zone. American military planning for contingencies in the Persian Gulf has always rested on a delicate tension. Limited strikes could satisfy domestic demands for visible justice and impose tactical pain on Iranian launch infrastructure. Precision munitions could target known coastal sites or mobile launcher staging areas. Yet planners quickly realized such actions would achieve little. The Khorramshahr 4 force is highly mobile, dispersed across hardened underground facilities and inland valleys. Many launchers had already relocated by the time the first damage assessments reached Washington. A limited campaign would not restore freedom of navigation, would not resurrect the submarine, and would almost certainly invite further Iranian retaliation, possibly against surface assets or regional bases. At the other extreme lay a large-scale suppression operation, a sustained air and missile campaign designed to systematically degrade Iran's ballistic missile production, command networks, and coastal defense layers. Such an effort would require weeks of intensive sorties against deeply buried targets, electronic warfare suppression, and repeated strikes across vast Iranian territory. The resource demands would be enormous, pulling aircraft, munitions, and intelligence assets away from other global commitments. More dangerously, it would almost certainly trigger the very scenario American strategists have dreaded for decades, a full Iranian attempt to close the Strait of Hormuz using mines, anti-ship missiles, fast attack craft, and proxy forces across the region. The economic stakes amplify every military calculation. Even a partial disruption in the strait sends immediate shockwaves through global energy markets. With roughly 20% of the world's traded oil passing through this corridor, prolonged uncertainty translates into spiking crude prices, strained supply chains, and inflationary pressure felt in households worldwide. Decision makers in Washington understand that an escalatory response, risking extended closure, could transform a severe energy disruption into a global economic crisis with unpredictable political consequences in allied capitals. Domestic politics adds another layer of complexity. The scale of the loss, a $20 billion platform, and over 4,200 American lives, generates intense public and congressional pressure for decisive action. Families demand answers. Opposition voices seize on any perceived weakness. Yet rushing into kinetic retaliation without a coherent strategy for managing escalation risks turning a painful defeat into a broader strategic disaster. The administration finds itself trapped between the need to project strength and the imperative to avoid actions that could make the initial loss appear manageable by comparison. Allies are watching closely and drawing their own conclusions. Gulf partners who have long relied on American naval presence for security are conducting urgent reassessments. The demonstrated ability of Iranian ballistic systems to reach high-value underwater assets in confined waters undermines confidence in traditional deterrence postures. European and Asian energy importers, heavily dependent on Gulf oil, are already exploring alternative sourcing and diplomatic channels that bypass traditional American mediation. This paralysis reveals deeper limits in superpower power. For decades, the United States has maintained the ability to project overwhelming force across open oceans and against less sophisticated adversaries. The events at Hormuz highlight how geography, combined with patient asymmetric investment by a determined regional actor, can constrain even the most advanced military. High-value platforms like the Virginia-class, while formidable in blue water environments, face compressed decision timelines and novel threat geometries when forced into narrow, heavily monitored chokepoints. The response that eventually emerges will not restore the pre-strike status quo. It will operate in a fundamentally altered strategic landscape where the calculus of risk, cost, and credibility has shifted. The era of routine, low-risk deterrence patrols through the strait has ended. Future American operations in the Gulf will require new concepts of operation, heavier investment in counter, A2, AD technologies, and perhaps a more restrained posture that acknowledges the change balance in this critical waterway. The Pentagon's current silence is therefore not weakness in the traditional sense. It is the institutional recognition that easy answers no longer exist. Every option on the table forces a trade-off between immediate political necessities and long-term strategic stability. Iran's planners designed the Khorramshahr capability precisely to create this dilemma, not merely to sink a submarine, but to confront Washington with choices where victory is elusive and escalation carries existential economic risks. The world is now waiting to see how the United States navigates this narrowed corridor of options. The decisions made in the coming days will shape not only the future of the Persian Gulf, but the perceived reliability of American security guarantees across the broader Middle East and beyond. While Washington grapples with military and political paralysis, another capital, thousands of kilometers away, is confronting immediate physical danger. In Tel Aviv, emergency sirens have sounded, and civil defense authorities have ordered the partial evacuation of key residential and government districts. Israeli intelligence assesses that Iran's proven Khorramshahr 4 capability now places major population centers within credible strike range, especially if escalation continues. The images of families moving to shelters and highways clogged with outbound traffic represent a visible psychological blow to a nation long accustomed to projecting strength against regional threats. This development is not accidental. It flows directly from Iran's long-standing strategic conviction that the Persian Gulf is not an international waterway to be policed by outside powers, but a core element of Persian historical and national identity. For Iran, control over the strait is not a negotiating position or a temporary tactical goal. It is a deeply rooted belief that predates the Islamic Republic by millennia and transcends current political factions. The name Persian Gulf itself carries symbolic weight. Iranian civilization has oriented itself around these waters for over 2,500 years. From the Achaemenid Empire through successive Persian dynasties, the northern coastline and the narrow strait have been viewed as vital strategic territory, a natural extension of the Iranian plateau rather than a neutral international corridor. Successive Iranian governments, whether monarchist or revolutionary, have consistently maintained that any permanent foreign military presence in these waters constitutes an unacceptable infringement on national sovereignty. The Islamic Republic did not invent this outlook, it inherited and intensified it. What makes Iran's current posture particularly formidable is the fusion of this ancient geographical conviction with modern revolutionary ideology and patient military investment. Across the political spectrum, from pragmatic reformists to hardline conservatives, there exists a broad consensus that Iran possesses both the historical right and the developing capability to deny hostile naval forces free access to what it considers its strategic backyard. This conviction explains why Iran has poured scarce resources into asymmetric capabilities such as the Khorramshahr missile family, coastal defense networks, and mobile launch systems, despite decades of sanctions and isolation. These weapons are not aimed at abstract adversaries. They are specifically designed to contest the continuous American naval presence that has operated from the Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain and through regular carrier deployments since the 1980s. From Tehran's perspective, that presence has never been a neutral guarantor of maritime security. It has been perceived as a sustained encirclement and a constant threat to Iranian interests. The strike on the USS Virginia therefore carries profound symbolic meaning for Iran. It represents the successful execution of a long-prepared plan against the most advanced expression of American underwater power in precisely the waters Iran claims as its own. For Iranian leadership and military planners, this is validation that decades of strategic patience and focused investment have begun to shift the local balance of power. The national will sustaining this effort is durable precisely because it draws from both historical memory and ideological commitment. It cannot be dismantled through targeted sanctions or limited airstrikes because it resides in the collective strategic culture rather than in any single regime figure. At the same time, the evacuation orders in Tel Aviv underscore the interconnected nature of the conflict. Iran's missile program has always maintained dual deterrence value against American forces in the Gulf and against Israel as America's primary regional partner. The demonstrated accuracy and reach of the Khorramshahr for against a moving naval target inevitably raises questions in Jerusalem about vulnerability to future strikes on land-based infrastructure or population centers. This creates a secondary pressure point on American decision-making. Any robust U.S. response must also account for the risk of direct Iranian retaliation against Israel, potentially dragging Washington into a multi-front crisis. In this sense, the events at Hormuz have forced a broader reckoning. For Iran, the strike affirms a deeply held belief that external powers do not possess an eternal right to dictate terms in its strategic domain. For the United States and its allies, it challenges the assumption that technological superiority and forward presence can indefinitely override geography and determine local resistance. The Persian Gulf, long treated as an extension of American maritime dominance, is being reframed by Tehran as a space where Persian strategic primacy must be respected. This ideological and historical dimension makes the current crisis particularly difficult to resolve through conventional military or diplomatic means. Threats, sanctions, or limited demonstrations of force are unlikely to alter a conviction that has been reinforced rather than weakened by the successful strike on Virginia. Iran's leadership views the current moment not as a reckless gamble, but as the logical outcome of consistent strategy pursued across generations of planners. The sirens in Tel Aviv and the silence in Washington both reflect the same underlying reality. A regional power has asserted its claim to the Persian Gulf in the most dramatic way possible, and the old assumptions about who truly controls these waters are now under unprecedented strain. The destruction of the USS Virginia at Hormuz marks more than a single military loss. It represents a civilizational inflection point, a moment when the structural assumptions that underpinned American maritime dominance in the Persian Gulf for nearly half a century have been visibly and operationally challenged. The immediate global impact is felt first through energy markets. With roughly 20% of the world's daily oil trade passing through the strait, even temporary uncertainty has triggered sharp price surges. Trading floors from London to Singapore are adjusting risk premiums in real time. Major importers, China, India, Japan, South Korea, and much of Europe, now face higher energy costs that will ripple through inflation, manufacturing, and consumer prices. Nations that once relied on the steady flow of Gulf petroleum must now recalculate their long-term energy security strategies, accelerating investments in alternative routes, diversified suppliers, and accelerated renewable transitions. Geopolitically, the shift is even more profound. China, already the largest buyer of Iranian oil and a key diplomatic partner, finds itself in a unique position. Beijing's deepening relationship with Tehran, combined with its growing economic influence across Gulf states, gives it leverage that no other power currently possesses. If China moves to mediate or broker de-escalation using its dual ties with Iran and the Arab Gulf monarchies, the implications for American regional influence would be significant. The United States has long positioned itself as the indispensable security provider in the Gulf. A successful Chinese diplomatic intervention in a crisis America could neither deter nor quickly resolve would accelerate the perception of a changing guard in Middle Eastern affairs. Russia stands to gain indirectly, but substantially. Higher global oil prices bolster Moscow's revenues at a time when its economy faces sustained pressure. Meanwhile, the diversion of American attention and military resources to the Gulf reduces bandwidth for other theaters, offering Russia greater freedom of action elsewhere. More importantly, the successful use of asymmetric ballistic capabilities against a premier American platform validates anti-access strategies that Russia itself has been developing in the Black Sea, Baltic, and Arctic regions. Across the global south, the narrative resonates differently. Many nations view the event through the lens of long-standing skepticism toward unchecked superpower projection. The image of a technologically superior American submarine neutralized in a regional choke point reinforces a broader story. Determined actors using asymmetric tools can impose real costs on established powers within their own strategic neighborhoods. This perception weakens the aura of inevitability that once surrounded American military dominance. At the systemic level, the old post-1945 order, built on uncontested Western maritime supremacy and reliable energy flows, is showing its limits. Multilateral institutions struggle to respond effectively. The United Nations Security Council remains divided, and existing frameworks for crisis management between nuclear and near-nuclear states appear inadequate for this new multipolar reality. What emerges from the wreckage on the seafloor is the early outline of a different world, one in which freedom of navigation in critical choke points can no longer be taken for granted, and where regional powers equipped with precision strike capabilities can reshape local balances without matching the United States symmetrically. The proliferation of similar anti-access technologies to other actors seeking to protect their own strategic spaces now appears increasingly likely. The old order had its flaws and injustices, but it also provided a degree of predictability. The emerging multipolar landscape has yet to develop equivalent stabilizing mechanisms. We are living through the dangerous transition period where old rules no longer fully apply and new ones have not yet been negotiated. The Strait of Hormuz lies quieter tonight, but the silence carries the weight of irreversible change. The sinking of a single submarine has forced the world to confront a fundamental truth. Patient, geography-informed investment in asymmetric capabilities can produce strategic outcomes that conventional superiority struggles to reverse. The era of unchallenged American control over the Persian Gulf has ended. What comes next will be shaped by decisions made under intense pressure by actors whose interests, risk calculations, and relative power are all shifting in real time. The Strait of Hormuz is quiet now, the kind of silence that follows a battlefield once the smoke clears. Yet, beneath the surface lies the wreckage of a $20 billion American nuclear submarine and the remains of over 4,200 lives. This single strike has done more than sink a vessel. It has shattered long-held illusions about unchallenged naval supremacy and forced the world to confront a new, harsher reality. The central lesson is clear. Geography, combined with patient asymmetric investment and unbreakable national conviction, can neutralize even the most advanced technological superiority. No amount of stealth, no depth of ocean, and no budget can overcome determined resistance when the battlefield favors the defender. Superpowers are not invincible. They are constrained by the same physical and strategic limits that bind every nation. From my perspective, this moment marks the beginning of a genuine multipolar era. The old order, where American naval power guaranteed freedom of navigation in every critical choke point, is fading. What replaces it will be more dangerous, more unpredictable, and ultimately more honest about the distribution of real power in the 21st century. What do you think? Is the sinking of the USS Virginia merely a temporary setback for American power, or the start of a permanent shift in the balance of the Middle East and beyond? If this channel delivers the raw, unfiltered strategic analysis you cannot find elsewhere, hit like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who needs to understand what just changed. Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters. Stay sharp, stay informed. We will see you in the next update as this crisis continues to unfold.